want to get Mr. Darnell, the witness, back in here. I've already addressed that. Kind of mumbled and soft. I've told the attorneys they need to get it up. And I'll go ahead and tell him too. You speak softly and you kind of mumble a little, so try as best you can to raise your voice and talk clearly.
Yes, sir.
Okay? All right,
yes,
thank you. You were placed under oath, and then we had to take early lunch because of our heating and cooling problems. So they're going to now continue with your direct examination.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Darnell, as the judge just said, I talk fast, you talk fast, and that's not a good combination.
No, sir.
And it's important for you to look up, speak in that microphone, speak to the jury. I also want you to understand this lady sitting here in front of you, our court reporter, it's important for her to hear you. So don't mumble, don't nod, just answer the question.
Yes, sir.
You got any questions for me? You understand?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, before we went to lunch, it got awfully hot in here.
Yes, sir.
And it got distracting because when the heat came on. But it's a lot cooler now. I think we're all in better shape. You ready to go?
Yes, sir.
And you've had some illness problems. You were kind of, you've taken care of that today, right?
I believe I got it under control.
All right, you ready to go? You feel
Yes, sir.
good? All right, let's go back just a little bit. You and Mr. Adams came out of that bathroom at your house, and he shot the gun over your girlfriend's head out the front door. Right?
Yes, sir.
Now tell the jury, slow and don't mumble, what happened after he shot that gun.
Well, I pushed the gun down toward the ground.
Talk slow.
I pushed the gun toward the ground and kind of pushed him in the same motion toward the exit, toward the side door to outside, and asked him what was going on, what was he thinking, and he broke down and started crying. And he was apologetic, all the way over shooting the gun. And I told him that I couldn't have him coming back around my house, acting like that and behaving like that. My kids and stuff coming in and out. And
I can't hear you, Mr. Darnell.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, just speak up, and that microphone will pick it up, so get a little closer to it.
And he was apologetic, of everything that what just happened. He took and I told him I couldn't have him coming back over to my house, behaving like that with the kids and everything. And I told him that he's more welcome to come back after he cleared his name of everything that was going on, everything he was being accused of, in the neighborhood and the community and whatnot.
Now, you told him he needed to clear his name.
Yes, sir.
What did you mean when you told him he needed to clear his name?
Of the rumors and that were going around of, whether the speculations of a Bobo case, of everything that was going on. It was a hot topic at the time around the area.
You told him he needed to clear his name about his involvement in the Holly Bobo
Yes, sir.
kidnapping, rape, and murder.
Yes, sir.
What did Mr. Adams say after you told him he needed to clear his name?
He said that he couldn't do that. He was too far involved into it, and there was no way he could do that.
Did he tell you he knew what had happened to Ms. Bobo?
No, sir, not that I can recollect.
He told you he was too deep into it.
Yes, sir.
Did he talk about his drug use?
He showed me the drag marks, I think they call it, on his arm where he'd been. He said, "This is what meth and morphine does to you," and he had bruises all over his arms and stuff where he'd been shooting it up.
You said drag mark?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
It's like bruises. It's like spots, Like
Tell the jury where on your arms he was pointing on his arm. What you saw?
the bend of his elbow on the inside of his arm. Yes, sir, on the inside of his arm, bend of his elbow and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Did he tell you what it made him do? How it made him act?
But I could tell by the way he was acting that night in particular that it wasn't a good combination. It wasn't good for anybody. I mean, he was acting really crazy.
Mr. Darnell, was there any question in your mind that what you all were talking about that night was Mr. Adams' involvement in the Holly Bobo case?
Could you Could you elaborate, please?
You understood you all were talking about the Holly Bobo?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever have anything to do with Mr. Adams after that night? He wanted you to do needle dope and shot that gun out your house?
Not that I can recollect. I think he honored my wish by not coming back around. You know, best I can remember, he didn't. If it maybe it's something in the past, and see him at the gas station or something. But as far as coming back over, I don't think he did.
No more socializing?
No, sir.
Mr. Darnell, you've had a little trouble in the past with the law, right?
Yes, sir.
Aggravated burglary convictions,
Yes, sir.
misdemeanor convictions.
Yes, sir.
That aggravated burglary was when you were how old?
18,
How old are you now?
30, 40. Turned 40 last Monday.
40?
Yes, sir.
And that felony was 22 years ago.
Yes, sir.
That's what it showed.
Now, Mr. Darnell, you remember speaking with one of my investigators, or two of my investigators, Amber Treat and Sarah Dunsing, don't you?
Yes, ma'am.
One of them, the woman over there,
Yes, ma'am.
and that was at your home, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That was June the 26th of this year?
Roundabout, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And at that time, you remember specifically telling them that you were not testifying solely for, not simply to do the right thing, that you were also interested in the reward, didn't you?
I told him that I wasn't like everyone else and saying that I wasn't interested in the money because, who wouldn't be,
Right, and you told her that the state would divide the money up amongst the people that testified against Mr. Adams.
No, ma'am. I told him that what the word that I heard from people going around the community is a small neighborhood. Everyone talks, and that's what the word is. That we're going to split it up, 100, 200 people or whatever.
But amongst those people that helped convict Mr. Adams.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the first time you've talked to the police on several occasions in this case, haven't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. First time you spoke to the police was on March the 1st, 2014, after Mr. Adams was arrested, wasn't it?
I guess I couldn't tell you the exact date, ma'am.
Around then.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then you spoke to them again April the 11th of 2014.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then you spoke to them a third time, which was September the 29th of 2014.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, all of those times when you told your story, you did not mention that your girlfriend was standing in the doorway when Mr. Adams shot the gun, did you?
She was sitting on the couch.
Okay. So you didn't mention your girlfriend was near the gunshot the first 3 times you told the story, did you?
I didn't change the story none, so.
And I didn't mean to say the first 3 times you told the story. The 3 times you spoke to the police, you didn't mention that your girlfriend was in the direction of the bullet, did you?
I couldn't.
Okay. So that's a new fact that you added later on.
Oh, no, ma'am.
But
No, ma'am.
it became new to the police because they hadn't heard it before, right?
I couldn't tell you exactly how, what I told, what I said word for word the first time,
As a matter of fact, you gave a written statement in this case. And I guess somebody else wrote it up for you and you signed it.
Yes, ma'am. I think I wrote one myself, too.
And you've had an opportunity to review that statement.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And you would agree with me that your girlfriend's not mentioned in that statement?
Not that I recall.
Okay. And you know Victor Dinsmore, don't you?
Yes, ma'am.
And you would say Mr. Dinsmore is a dishonest person, wouldn't you?
Objection.
If he
I don't
knows.
believe it's relevant. I don't believe it's
That's
relevant.
one's opinion on someone else's credibility is appropriate.
It's 6:07, Your Honor. it has to do with impeachment and reputation in the community for honesty, and this witness' personal knowledge about whether or not he's on 608, I'm sorry. It's evidence of character and conduct of a witness and specific instances of conduct and impeaching somebody based on somebody's opinion for their honesty.
All right, Ayes.
Okay. You know Mr. Dinsmore, Victor
ma'am.
Dinsmore, don't you?
Yes, ma'am.
And you would consider him a dishonest person, wouldn't you?
Certain aspects of his life, yes, ma'am.
Okay. I mean, he stole some money from you, didn't he?
In a roundabout way, yes, ma'am.
Did he sell you a house he did not own?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how much money did you pay him for that house?
Right at $21,000.
Okay. And turned out he didn't own it to sell it to you, did he?
No, ma'am.
And at one point, Mr. Dinsmore tried to rape your ex-wife, didn't he?
I found out yesterday, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you wouldn't trust Mr. Dinsmore, would you?
No, ma'am.
Matter of fact, you look somewhat mad. Do you dislike Mr. Dinsmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you getting mad right now?
No, ma'am. Nervous.
Nervous. Okay,
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry. Don't be nervous. Now, after, let's see. Specifically, when you're saying that you told Zach to clear up his name, you were clear with the investigators that you did not mention the name Holly Bobo to Zach when you told him that, did you?
No, ma'am.
Okay, you just said you need to clear up your name and everything that's being said about you, didn't you?
Clear your name of what's going on.
And Zach simply replied he couldn't clear up his name, he was in too deep.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is right after he's shot the gun in your house, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you would agree with me that he was high at the time he was shooting the gun.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, he'd been using meth and other drugs.
Presumably, yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
I think he was. He didn't do that in front of me, so
Okay. But he was certainly, strike that. So, and when he responded to you, he did not specifically say Holly Bobo's name, did he?
No, ma'am.
You assumed that you both knew what you were talking about, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. No further questions.
Anything else?
You assumed he knew because that was big news in that county.
Yes, sir. That's the only topic going around. I mean, that was.
And you thought he was involved.
Yes, sir.
And that's why you told him to clear his name.
Yes, sir.
And he couldn't do it because he was in too deep.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Done. All right, step down, you're free to go. Please don't discuss any testimony given in court.
Yes, sir.
All right, you're next.
Stateler.
Raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I swear.
I want you to sit down and state your first and last name for the record and spell it for the court reporter, please.
Carl Stateler,
Carlstateler.
Spell last name again.
Stateler.
Okay.
Now proceed.
You may.
Mr. Stateler, I want you to direct your answers to the jury, but keep your voice up, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'll pull it up because you're kind of tall. Where do you live?
Parsons, Tennessee.
Okay. Speak up.
Parsons, Tennessee.
There you go.
Sorry about
I
that.
can hear you. Did you grow up around there?
Yes, ma'am.
And how old are you?
28.
You know a person by the name of Zach Adams?
Yes, ma'am.
You see him in the courtroom?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you point him out, please?
For the record, there's a video.
Do you know a person by the name of Shane Austin?
Yes, ma'am.
And where's Shane Austin?
Dead from what I hear.
What about Dylan Adams?
Incarcerated. Yeah.
So you know all of those individuals. What about a guy named Jason Autry?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to take your attention back to 2011. Are you the same person today that you were then?
No, ma'am.
Are you working?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you been working for several years?
Yes, ma'am.
Stable?
Yes, ma'am.
Back in the day, were you, I guess, not living the same life you're living now?
Yes, ma'am.
During that time, is that when you knew Zach Adams and Shane Austin?
Yes, ma'am.
And let me just ask you, were you sort of involved in the drug culture back then?
Yeah, I was just raised up in the area, and that's all I ever know until I had enough sense to get myself out of it.
And you moved to Nashville?
Yes, ma'am.
Because other witnesses have been asked, I want to ask you the same thing. Do you have any felonies?
No, ma'am.
Despite not having any felony convictions, you have some misdemeanors?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So back in 2011, you said you knew Zach Adams.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember hearing that a young lady by the name of Holly Bobo from Parsons had come up missing?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that big news in your town?
No.
Was not big news?
I mean, it's just another person that come up missing around there, you know.
Was it on the television?
Yes.
And did you personally know anything about that?
No.
Okay, did you know her?
No.
Did you know her family?
No.
Didn't know Karen Bobo, Clint Bobo, Holly's brother, Dana Bobo, her father?
No, ma'am.
Back in 2011, where did you live? Remember?
Yep, with Victor Dinsmore.
Okay. And that was off of Yellow Springs Road?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Believe you were dating his daughter, maybe?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the jury has seen a picture, an aerial of the Dinsmore house and the big shop, I guess, that was out there. Did you live there on a permanent basis, or were you sort of coming and going?
Coming and going.
Now, did you have occasion after Holly was reported as missing to ever have a discussion with Zach Adams about that?
Would you repeat the question?
Okay, that was kind of probably not an easy question. The summer after Holly went missing, she went missing in April. So the summer after that, do you recall a time when you were riding around in Zach's truck with him?
Yes.
Okay. And did he make a statement to you about what you believed to be Holly Bobo and her disappearance?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you tell the jury what he said?
He said, I let Shane hit it.
Said what?
I let Shane hit it.
And what did you take that to mean?
The only thing that it could mean, as far as I knew Zach Adams was concerned, and the Holly Bobo disappearance.
What did the word, and you may not want to say it, but what did...
Rape.
Rape. Right. Did you ask him any questions about it?
No, ma'am.
Did you want to know about it?
No, ma'am.
In addition, and that was the summer after
Yes.
Holly came missing?
Yes.
Or during the summer, I guess. Did you also have an occasion to be at a bar with him on a different day when he made certain statements?
Yes, ma'am.
And where was this bar located?
Johnny's Bar and Grill in Parsons, Tennessee.
Okay, and where in Parsons is Johnny's Bar and Grill?
It is about halfway down towards the interstate, towards Cherokee Heights, Woodland Shores area.
Okay. And I know you don't know the date, but you believe this to be the end of that same summer?
Yes, ma'am.
And what, if anything, did Zach say to you regarding Holly Bobo?
What did he say to me?
Or say to somebody else that you overheard?
He said, "I'll kill you like I did Holly Bobo,"
And who did he say that to?
the bartender.
And was that bartender a male or a female?
Female,
What was her name?
Misty Tubbs.
I let Shane hit it. I'll do you like I did Holly Bobo. Did he make one more statement to you about Holly Bobo? And who was
Yes.
And who was responsible? What did he say to you?
He said, "I did it."
Where were you when he said, "I did it"? Was that also at that same bar?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ask him any questions?
No, ma'am.
Did you want to know about it?
No, ma'am.
And until law enforcement came and talked to you, and did you ever report it?
Yes.
Who did you report it to?
The TBI.
And when they asked you, you told them what you knew?
Yes, ma'am.
One moment. I don't have anything else, Mr. Stateler. Thank you. The defense may have questions.
Cross-examination.
Now, Mr. Stateler, the first time the TBI came to talk to you about possible information regarding Zach Adams, you denied knowing anything, didn't you?
I don't recall that.
The first time they came to interview you, you denied knowing anything about Holly Bobo and who was responsible?
I don't recall that.
So that's a memory that you don't have now, is that correct?
It's been a long time, but yes.
Okay. And so, then you say when you were driving around, Mr. Adams said, "I let Shane hit it."
Yes, ma'am.
And you assume what he meant was that he allowed Shane to rape Holly Bobo?
Yes, ma'am, I assume.
Okay, but you didn't ask any follow-up questions?
No.
Okay. And then you heard him say at a bar to Misty Tubbs, "I'll do you like I did Holly Bobo"?
Yes, ma'am.
But in the past, didn't you specifically say, you heard him say, "I'll do you like Holly Bobo"?
What past are you referring to? The night at the bar?
Before, when you've repeated that statement, wasn't it slightly different in that you said, Zach Adams said, "I'll do you like Holly Bobo," instead of "I'll do you like I did"?
I don't
Holly
remember
Bobo?
the specifics. I just remember him telling the bartender that night that he would kill her like he did Holly Bobo.
But he didn't say kill. He said, "I'll do you."
I'm not sure the exact words, but it was serious enough to,
Okay, but
you know.
it's possible.
Wait, I'm sorry, Your Honor, he's still talking. She
I
cannot.
think he finished. He
Cut
said
off.
it was serious enough was his statement.
Okay, I couldn't hear them, but.
And then on one more occasion, you heard him say, "I did it," when you were at the same bar.
Yes.
And you took that to mean that he was confessing that he had killed Holly Bobo. Or was
Yes.
involved. I don't mean to talk over you, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. But you didn't ask any follow-up questions
No,
regarding
ma'am.
that? No further questions?
Yes, Ms. Thompson asked whether or not you denied having information. Actually, the first time TBI came to you was on December the 8th, 2011. I don't suppose you remember that day.
No, not
Exact-
specifically, no, ma'am.
Okay. But on that day, in addition to the things you testified to, did you also provide them with additional information about Zach Adams regarding his drug usage in the immediate days following Holly's disappearance?
Will you repeat the question, please?
Okay. Did you also tell TBI about Zach Adams' drug usage right after Holly Bobo came up missing?
Yes.
Tell the jury what you told them back in 2011.
I said that he had been high out of his mind for days or weeks, just out of his, like, too high to function.
And that was in the days and weeks following?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that's also the same interview that you told them that he blurted out, "I let Shane hit it"?
Yes, ma'am.
It's also the same interview where you told them that at Johnny's bar in Decatur County, he became upset with Misty Tubbs and made the statement that he did about Holly.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. During the time, now, they talked to you again several years later, and at that time, you indicated that Zach Adams was driving several different cars during that period of time. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you know him to drive a white Nissan truck?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you know him to drive occasionally, and that Jason Autry was driving a PT Cruiser,
Yes, ma'am.
and that Shane Austin was driving a Crown Victoria?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Now, you remember speaking to our investigators, two women that came to talk to you?
Yes.
don't you? And so you specifically told them, you described Zach Adams as being passive aggressive and liked to mess with people's heads,
Yes.
didn't you? And so just a moment ago also, you testified that Zach Adams, there was a point at which he was so high, he was using so many drugs that he was unable to really function.
Yes.
Okay.
Of
And
sound mind.
At the time he talked about letting Shane hit it, that was right during the middle of that time when he was so high he was having a hard time functioning.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. No further questions.
One more to follow up on that. You indicated that, and I left this out on purpose the first time, but Ms. Thompson asked about head games. Was he playing head games when he pulled guns on you multiple times?
Objection, Your Honor. It's outside the scope.
Oh. How was that outside the scope?
Let's just move on. All right, you can be excused, do not discuss your testimony with anyone.
Thank you.
Step down. Next, do we call
Corey Rivers.
Raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
Be seated. I want you to state your name first and last. And spell it for the court reporter.
Corey Rivers, CoreyRivers.
And Mr. Rivers, I'm going to ask that you speak up. I'm actually going to adjust the microphone for you because you're sort of soft-spoken, okay?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And I want you to do your best to direct your answers so that all the jury can hear you, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I couldn't hear you at all.
Oh,
No.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, lean forward. Where do you live, Mr. Rivers?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Jacksonville, Florida. And how long have you lived there?
All my life.
You grew up there, family there?
Yes, ma'am.
You have a job?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you had this job?
For about a year.
And you drove up here the last couple of days at the state's request.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to draw your attention back to 2016 and ask if you found yourself in Tennessee.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
How did you come to be in Tennessee in 2016?
Me and a couple of my friends was driving up here, and we was actually, I think we was heading up north, and we was heading up north, and we got pulled over by Williamson County, and my other friends, they was tired of driving. We had drove from Florida, so I drove, but I didn't have any license, and so my homeboy said, well, you can use my license. So when we got pulled over, I used his license. Come to find out, his was suspended. So
Let me stop you here. So you see the blue lights, right?
yes, ma'am.
And before the police get up to your door, your friend passes you his license.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's the license you presented.
Yes, ma'am.
All right? So what happened after that? And then he checks that license and
Yeah.
finds out that's suspended?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm like, oh my God. So I end up, by me being out of state, they told me that I have a bond of $1,000 to, but I would have to still go and turn myself in. So I didn't want to tell the police that, this not me. I just paid the $1,000 and just got from up here. And I ended up going back down to Florida, and I guess I did a year. I had did a year down there because I was fighting something down there. So I did a year in the county down there. I got out and I had a case up here because they had found out that it wasn't me. So I ended up taking a plea of 60 days and 2 years probation, which is what I'm doing now.
So you're on probation now?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
So the 60 days that you got for using somebody else's identity,
Yes, ma'am.
where did you do your 60 days?
In Franklin, Tennessee, Williamson County.
County?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I want to ask you, and you were actually incarcerated for your 60 days last year,
Yes, ma'am.
like April through June,
Yes, ma'am.
somewhere around April 8th through June 9th?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And while you were incarcerated in Williamson County, did you come to know or meet an individual by the name of Zachary Adams?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you see him in the courtroom today?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you point him out?
Right there.
For the record.
Now, before you got here, before you got locked up on this driving charge, did you know anything about the case regarding Holly Bobo that happened in Decatur County, Tennessee?
No, ma'am.
Before you got locked up on your driving charge, did you know anything about an individual by the name of Zachary Adams?
No, ma'am.
What about Dylan Adams?
No, ma'am.
What about Shane Austin?
No, ma'am.
What about Jason Autry?
I still don't know who them people are. No, ma'am.
The man that you pointed out to a minute ago, Zachary Adams, how did you come to know him when you were locked up in Williamson County?
We was next door cellmates for 60 days.
Okay. Now, if you're next door cellmates, does that allow for opportunities for you to talk to one another?
Yes, ma'am.
How does that work?
We can talk through the vent, so we can talk through the door
Okay. And does that happen a lot?
every day. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just prior to your making the acquaintance of Zachary Adams, how were you spending some of your time of confinement? Doing what?
Either working out or reading my Bible or just reading.
I asked you some questions about reading your Bible. Do you know whether or not Zachary Adams saw you reading your Bible?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you all actually have a conversation about that?
Yes, ma'am. A few times we did.
I want you to explain to the jury what he said, what you said, what he said.
No, he just used to walk by and he see me reading my Bible, and he asked me, you know, about the forgiveness, you know, like, would God ever forgive him? And, you know, we just used to talk on a daily basis, and I was like, yeah, God will forgive you no matter what, you know, human people see you as. God will forgive you if you just be honest, you know, whatever situation you're going through. And we just used to confide in like that.
Did he indicate whether or not he was interested? You said as long as you do what? Tell the truth?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Did he indicate to you at all what his intentions were?
No, ma'am.
Now, was this before or after you knew what he was charged with, or both, before and after?
We started talking that night. It's like when I first get in there and the person asks you, like, what are you in for? And, you know, first couple of days you shy, don't really say too much. And I gave him the story while I was in there, and he kind of semi-told me that while he was in there, but I didn't know it was anything like this. So.
Did he tell you that he was charged with kidnapping, rape, and murder?
Yes, ma'am.
When you heard that news, well, just tell the jury how that conversation went.
Well, when I heard it, I still didn't kind of like give him no, I still didn't like stop talking to him because, you know, everybody's been accused of similar situations like that. Should I elaborate on that?
Sure, you start.
You know, my mom was like that. She was accused of murder when I was 4 years old. I had got molested. At the age of 4, I had to get 36 stitches. So, you know, she came home from work and she seen my stepdad inside of me, so she killed him. And they sentenced my mom to life without parole. So, you know, we're not knowing what defects behind it, but in the system, my stepdad's sister was a police officer, so that's why she got that much time. But she fought for me. I'm the only child, so my mom is out now. She only did 9 years, and you can't even tell she went in. So I didn't really like try to pass judgment against him because I'm not knowing the background of why he's accused of that. So I didn't.
So you just kept talking to him?
Yeah, I just kept talking to him like a normal person.
Did he tell you anything about what he was charged with? Did you ask him what happened?
Not at first. I mean, as through day to day, weeks and weeks, we talking. When he come out for his hour, I come out for his hour. We talking through when it's, you know, nothing to do. He was elaborating of, you know, I asked him what happened, you know.
Tell them.
And
you asked him what happened?
Yeah, I asked him what happened, and he really didn't go into much detail. He was just like, you know, him and a couple of his friends got drunk, and, you know, they went.
Stop here. Did he say a couple of his friends, or did he say a family member and another guy?
He didn't elaborate on that. He just said a couple of his friends had went into the, you know, they got drunk and they went into the woods with this girl, and, you know, one thing led to another, and then he was like, you know, I was there for the worst of it. And I was like, well, did you do it? And he was like, I was there for the worst of it. And he just left it like that. We never really got into detail about that. That's when the subject again got on about the forgiveness, and you know, just be honest, and no matter what the outcome is, at least you right with God, you know. So it just went on like that.
So he told you that he and a couple of his friends got drunk and did what? Got her in the woods?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then, without giving you details, he told you he was there for the worst of it.
Yes, ma'am. We didn't go into detail.
He didn't tell you what the worst of it was?
No, ma'am.
When he told you that, did you stop talking to him, or did you continue to, I don't know, try and be his friend, or?
I just continued to talk because I didn't know it was, you know, anything as dramatic as this. So I just continued to talk because here I am in the same predicament you is. I'm just not, you know, charged for the same thing. So I try not to judge people by that.
Did he tell you what had happened to her body?
Yes, ma'am, he did. He told me that the bottom side was found in one part of Tennessee, and then some other pieces was found otherwhere. So.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
And
Repeat
And other pieces was found other places. That's what he told me.
But did he say what had happened to her body before that?
It had got chopped up. He said it had been chopped up.
And specifically,
I'm sorry, he's just dropping his voice.
It had got chopped up.
specifically, did he tell you that they had found her upper torso?
Yes, ma'am.
When you heard all of this, I know that you had tried not to judge, but did you, on your own, reach out to law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
Did they come and talk to you?
Yes, ma'am, they did.
And was that while you were still locked up doing your 60 days?
Yes, ma'am.
At that point when they came and talked to you, did you ask for anything from them?
No, ma'am.
Did you want anything from them?
No, ma'am.
You'd already pled guilty. Your case, you had your days, right?
Yes, ma'am. 60 days. Yes, ma'am.
Did you share with law enforcement what you told the jury?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Rivers, did he, when it came time for you to get out in June, did Zachary Adams, that you pointed out here, tell you or mention a video?
Yeah, he actually I told him, to let me know how, everything turned out, and and I told him, we prayed and stuff before I left, and I actually left him my Bible because he already had one, but I still left him my Bible so he can pass over to somebody else, and he gave me his number, and he said, man, I'm gonna he said, do you have a Facebook or a YouTube account or Facebook account? And I was like, yeah, and I gave him my Facebook and stuff information, and he was like, man, I'm going to call you, and I'm going to give you something. I was like, all right, I wasn't really thinking nothing much. I'm ready to go. My time is up. I'm ready to go home. So I really wasn't thinking nothing of it. So when I did get out, about a week later, he did call, but I never picked up because I never put no money on the phone. And once I start, researching and Googling.
All right, you can't talk about what you said, but after you got out in June, did you look up this case and decide that you weren't going to talk to him anymore?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now what I'm asking, I asked you, before you left, did he tell you about a video? And then you jumped to the Facebook and the,
yes,
and the YouTube. So what did he tell you about the video?
He told me that it was something, he had something he wanted to show me. He wanted to tell me to look up when I get out by the video.
Did he make any reference to it being right under the noses?
Oh, yes, he said,
yes,
yes, ma'am. He told me it was right under the nose of, the people who's looking into this.
But that what? They hadn't found it?
No, they haven't found it. So he told me he was going to, when he called me, just pay close attention to what he said. But when he called, I never put no money on the phone or no time on the phone.
Is everything that you told the jury here true?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
All right, cross-examination.
Now, Mr. Rivers, where you were staying in the Williamson County Jail, that's protective custody, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And as a matter of fact, everybody is locked up 23 hours a day in their cells.
That is correct, ma'am.
And you were in protective custody because you were a sex offender on the sex offender registry.
That is correct, ma'am.
Matter of fact, you have a felony sex offense for child molestation.
That's not correct, ma'am.
You're on the sex offender registry for
Lewd and lascivious.
lewd and lascivious behavior with someone under the age of 16.
That's not correct, ma'am.
That's not correct?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So it's an error if the record shows that?
On whoever part, it got to be. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so even when people are let out of jail for their 1 hour a day, everybody in this unit is let out at different times, aren't they?
Yes, ma'am.
And they can then leave their small 6 by 4 foot cell to go into the main rec room. Isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am. What do you mean by small rec room?
Okay,
We're in the
yes.
dormitory. on the top floor.
You go into but you can go into the main part of the dorm, like the large rec room is where you go during your 1 hour of release time.
If you're on the top floor, you have to kind of like stay on the top floor. If you're on the bottom, you stay on the bottom unless you're using the phone. Otherwise, it's no moving around.
Okay, but you get to come out of your cell and you can walk up and down
The aisle. Yes, ma'am.
the aisle by the other cells.
That's correct, ma'am.
And that's the time when you take a shower and you can go down and use the telephone.
That's correct, ma'am.
And there's one telephone in the main area of the pod, isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So all the cell doors kind of open out into this common area.
If it's your time to come out. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but what I'm saying is all the doors face this opening of the common area, don't they?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And there's one television that people watch, isn't that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you actually share that television with another unit?
No, ma'am.
Control? Well, I guess the downstairs and the upstairs share the television, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So if you're going to watch television, you actually have to stand in your cell and look out the little bitty window in the door.
Not the room I was in. I can sit on my bed and actually watch TV. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But that is the case on similar situation.
Okay. And each door has a very small window that looks out, doesn't it?
That is correct, ma'am.
Kind of a long rectangular window.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so you're only allowed out of your cell 1 hour a day.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're not free to really have physical contact with anybody else in the cell.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now you've been in more than one jail over your lifetime, haven't you?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Okay. And in jail, would you agree with me that people like to maintain a kind of in general, a tough demeanor so that they are not picked on or bullied by other inmates?
You can say that.
I mean, it's kind of a survival of the fittest in jail, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what you said earlier about when you got stopped in the car, this is while you were driving around, and you lied and gave them somebody else's ID that you were stopped driving and you handed them somebody else's ID, somebody else's driver's license.
That is correct, ma'am.
And that was just for your pure own self-survival, right?
Yes, ma'am.
To try to keep you out of trouble.
Pretty much.
And so you lied to police in order to benefit yourself, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so now you initially contacted the police before you were released from jail about Mr. Adams, didn't you?
That is correct, ma'am.
Okay. You contacted police on May the 4th, which was, you hadn't even been there a whole month when you contacted the police about him.
6 days shorter than a month. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Because at that point you thought, you say it was just you said you contacted them because it was such a serious crime, that's why you came forward?
Yes, ma'am. What he told me. Yes, ma'am.
But you recognize that there might be some benefit to you.
What benefit was it towards me, ma'am?
Well, you recognize that sometimes they do let people out of their sentence. They get a lighter sentence if they come forward with information, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am, but I still kept my 60 days and 2 years probations, which I only have 8 more months left now that I'm going to do to the door.
That's right, because there wasn't an opportunity for you to testify before your time expired, was there?
I didn't know because I didn't know anything about the case at that time as far as that detail.
But you did have television where you were in your cell.
Williamson County didn't broadcast that. But I didn't see it.
Okay, they did broadcast the news though.
Your Honor, she's arguing with him.
I mean, they did broadcast the news.
Let him answer.
Okay.
They broadcasted the news, ma'am, but I didn't see anything as far as in what Zach is accused of at that time.
He didn't give you any more details about the crime than what you've said here in front of the jury, did he?
No, ma'am.
Okay. But he did just admit to you that he was involved in it.
Yes, ma'am.
A person he had just met.
Yes, ma'am.
Another criminal that's being housed in protective custody along with him.
Yes, ma'am.
And he also talked to you about religion.
Yes, ma'am.
If I can have a minute. And then before you were released from custody, you called the TBI back and talked to them one more time, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am.
And this time, you said he had continued to talk to you while you were in jail, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am,
That
I
was your
did.
claim?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Even though you did admit that he said his attorney had told him to not talk about the case?
Yes, ma'am. Him, his attorney and his papa. That's what he used to call his grandfather, his papa.
Papa?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
And you don't believe everything people tell you in jail, do you?
Object to relevance. Whether-
Sustained.
No further questions.
Ms. Rivers, Ms. Thompson just asked you about why you were on the sex offender registry. Does that relate back to a charge that you got when you were in state custody when your mother was in prison?
Yes, ma'am. I was in a juvenile program.
Okay. And you were how old?
I was 17 when I was accused. I didn't get formally charged until I was 18. He was 16. He touched me. I touched him. He told me that he told me if I didn't let them know what I did, that he was going to tell so I can catch more time. But I was so ignorant at that time that I didn't care. I was ready to go. So he told what happened, that I touched him and he touched me. So they had to wait till I was 18 to formally charge me, which was a year later. But I was so ignorant with the law till I took a plea. And that was when I was 18. I'm now 32. I have never ever had any other crime like that. Never even dealt with nothing else like that in my life.
You could actually be off the sex offender registry in Florida.
Yeah, I didn't
at
know.
this time, but you just didn't get
I
off.
didn't even know until till a lawyer reached out to me and looked into my case and told me that I can't fight it because it's so old, but that I can get off the registry. But I'm back working and I'm in school, and right now I just don't have the funds to pursue that to get off right now. But it is in the making. Yes, ma'am.
And since Ms. Thompson was asking you some questions sort of about your credibility, I see you have 2 teardrops. Sometimes that's associated with gang killings. What are yours for?
Mine is for my grandmama. I got them in 2008 when she passed. It was for my grandmother.
When Zach told you about the 2 other people that got Holly that got Holly into the woods, did you also report that?
Objection to leaving, Your Honor.
I'm not suggesting. He can say yes, he can say no. I just got to get him to a certain place, Judge.
Yeah.
Did you also report a statement that Zach made about what one of the other individuals ultimately did to himself?
Yeah, I couldn't.
Objection, Your Honor. It's relevance.
I can't remember if it was his.
Wait just a minute, Corey.
The question again.
Was what something else Zach told him about one of the individuals involved?
All right.
I couldn't remember what was it because it's been over a year. I don't recall if it was his brother or his cousin, but he said someone had, committed suicide and killed themselves
Because why?
because of the situation that they had got into.
I mean, did he tell you because he felt so bad?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are those my words or
No,
are those?
those are my words.
Okay. Your words or are they Zach's words?
Well, those exact words. I'm sorry.
That's all. Thank you.
So I want to understand, you're saying that this charge that I asked you about, it was not with someone under 16, it was with someone who was 16.
That is correct, ma'am.
Okay.
You wasn't precise, so I didn't
And-
answer it.
Okay, so I got it a little wrong. And then you're saying that you were not guilty of it, but they charged you when you were 18 and you went ahead and took a plea to prevent further trouble?
I had been in a juvenile program since I was 14 years old. I didn't get out till I was 18. I didn't have my mother at the time. I was raised by the street, so I was ignorant with the law. So they offered me 35 years or versus take 5 years probation with the plea, and I took it because I didn't have no lawyer or anything to represent me, and I didn't know nothing about the law at that time.
You did not have a lawyer on a case that serious?
A public defender.
Okay, but a public defender would be an attorney, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so what you're saying is you lied about being guilty in order to get yourself a better benefit.
So I wouldn't take 35 years.
And you went to court and you lied about being guilty in front of the court.
So I wouldn't take 35 years.
Okay, just to be clear. Thank you.
Done?
Done.
All right, you're free to go, sir. Thank you. Please don't discuss your testimony with anyone.
Yes, sir.
How long is your next witness?
Not terribly long, Judge.
All right, let's go ahead and get another, then we'll take a break, okay?
Say called Shawn Cooper.
Raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Come up here and be seated. State your first and last name, spelling for the benefit of the court reporter.
Shawn Cooper, SHAWN COOPER.
Mr. Cooper, you're going to keep your voice up, okay?
Yes, sir.
Even louder than that.
Yes, sir.
Stick into that microphone so we can hear you over here, okay?
Yes, sir.
You're in a prison outfit, aren't you?
Yes, sir. Jail outfit.
Jail? What jail are you in?
Hardman County.
Why are you in jail in Hardin County?
Hardman, I think he said.
Hardin?
Hardman.
Yes,
Yeah. Violation of probation, not paying my fines and not showing up.
Not paying your fines and what?
Not showing up to see her.
Not showing up for your meetings?
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And what were you on probation for?
Theft under 500 and driving on suspended.
All right, so 2 misdemeanors.
Yes, sir.
But you do have 2 felonies in your past, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Aggravated assault and arson?
Yes, sir.
And how long ago was that?
2008.
That involved your ex-wife?
Yes, sir.
I want to ask you about another time you were in jail, okay?
Yes, sir.
March of 2014. March the 4th of 2014.
Yes, sir.
Did something happen that day?
Yes, sir.
All right, speak up loud. Tell me and the jury what happened.
I was sitting there, and a lady.
Where were you sitting?
I was sitting on a bench after court, just sitting there. All the inmates were sitting there. Waiting till the other inmates go to court and stuff.
Is there like a room outside the courtroom where the inmates are locked up or whatever?
It's just a hallway.
Just a hallway?
Yeah, we was just sitting on a bench, all cuffed.
Okay.
And a lady come out and said, "Does anybody think they're gonna be able to bond out or go home today?" And I raised my hand, raised my finger, just joking. She said, "No, Mr. Cooper, you're gonna go to O'Brien County. You got a hold."
Okay, so let me interrupt you. Woman comes out, is anybody gonna go home today? Is anybody gonna bond out or get time served or whatever and go home today?
Yes, sir.
You raised your hand, but you knew you weren't going home today.
No, I knew I wasn't going.
Did you say it was a joke?
Yeah.
And she told you what?
You have a hold in O'Brien County.
Okay, a hold means they want you in O'Brien County for something, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So that means that if you left their jail, you'd be going to a different jail,
Yes, sir.
to the O'Brien County jail.
Yes, sir.
After she told you that, did anybody say anything to you?
Zachary Adams was sitting there.
Now, did you know Zachary Adams?
No, sir.
So before that day, is it fair to say you didn't even know who he was?
Yes, sir. I didn't know him.
Never hung out with him?
No.
Nothing like that?
No, sir.
All right, well, tell me what happened.
He said, "You going to O'Brien County?" He said, "You know who I am?" I said, "No." He said, "I'm Zachary Adams. I'm the Holly Bobo murder case." I said, "Oh." And he said, "Is there any way you can talk to any inmates when you get there on the federal side?" And I said, "I don't know, maybe through the door."
Now, let me interrupt you, okay? When he asked, is there any way that you could talk to other inmates there on the federal side, what is he talking about?
It's a federal holding facility. It holds the federal inmates.
Okay, so Lyon County has prisoners like you, but they also may have some prisoners that are federal defendants.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
He asked you whether or not you were going to be able to talk to anyone.
Yes, sir.
So what'd you tell him?
I said I might can. If I'm in F pod or E pod, maybe through the door, I might could talk to him.
Okay.
And I can't really remember what name he told me, but he told me it was his brother. He said, "You tell him if he don't keep his mouth shut, I'm gonna put him in the hole beside her."
Beside who?
Holly Bobo.
He told you, and you said a name you can't remember, but that it was his brother?
Yeah, he says my brother.
And you better do what?
Keep his mouth shut before I put him in the hole beside her.
Before I put him in a hole beside.
Yes,
What did
sir.
you say to him?
I told him he better quit talking to me, and probably I said a few cuss words to him, and he shut up. And then they come got me, or he went into court and got his bond.
Let me interrupt you right before that, okay? You said some cuss words to him?
Yeah.
Why'd you say some cuss words to him?
'Cause it hit me wrong, so it made me mad.
You threaten him?
I said something to him, I can't really remember.
Okay.
I'll slap you or something.
That you were going to slap him or something?
Yeah.
Is it fair to say you didn't want him talking to you?
Yeah, not after that.
Do you want to be part of this at all?
No.
All right, you said he went into court then and came back. What
Yeah.
happened then?
He was walking out. He said something about, "I got a blah, blah, blah bond." Just
Talking
stop.
about his bond?
Yeah. Like it was a joke or something.
Like it was a joke?
Yeah.
So he had gone into court, and whatever happened in court happened in court, and now he has come back and he's made some joke about his bond.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember the exact words he used?
No, something about, "I got a blah, blah, blah bond," like it was cool or something.
I think it was cool.
Something.
Did you think it was cool?
No. I just want to go home.
You just wanted to go home.
Yeah.
But you weren't going home, you were going to O'Brien County.
Yeah.
Did he make any other statements back there with you about the case?
I try to remember.
Okay.
It's been
And were there
some.
any other people back there with you when this happened?
Yeah, there was a couple people sitting there.
Would it be fair to say there were other inmates?
Yes, sir.
Did you personally know any of those other inmates?
No, sir.
All right, so you hear Zach Adams ask you, will you be able to talk to the federal inmates in O'Brien County? You tell him maybe.
Yes, sir.
He tells you to get a message to his brother. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Lie in a hole next to Holly, or next to her.
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You hear him joking about his bond.
Yes, sir.
So after you hear this, do you run to the police? Do you run to the police and try to get credit for this? See if maybe you can get out of going to O'Brien County.
No, sir.
Instead, how did the police find out about this?
I was talking to my old lady because I was sort of stunned about it all.
You mumbled that to say it again.
I was sort of stunned, so I was trying to tell my old lady, like in a secret way, in court, or on the phone, about what happened in court.
All right, so right after you got out of court, did you call your old lady?
Yeah, sometime that day.
And you try to tell her what you heard?
Yeah, can't believe what this dude said to me.
And the police must have been listening to that, right?
I guess.
Because then they came to you.
Yeah.
And when they came to you 9 days later, did you tell them the truth, just like you've told us today?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever received anything in return for this?
No, sir.
Have I ever done anything for you?
No, sir.
Has anybody ever done anything for you?
No, sir.
You're serving time because you didn't pay your fines and you missed some probation years.
Yes, sir.
Be fair to say nobody's helped you?
Yeah, nobody's helped me.
You talked about how you were going to O'Brien County. Where were you presently when this happened? What county?
Chester County.
Chester County. And is that where this conversation took place in the lockup?
Yes, sir.
Do you see Mr. Adams in the courtroom today?
Yes, sir.
Can you point where he's seated?
Right there.
The
For the
record
record, the
reflect.
defendant.
Thanks. No further questions.
Cross.
Now, Mr. Cooper, in fact, you did tell other inmates about what you claim Mr. Adams said, didn't you?
Other inmates?
Other inmates, yes.
I think I asked one if they heard it. I don't know if I told any of them, but I asked the one dude next to me if he heard it. And I don't remember what he said. It's been years ago.
But in fact, you did tell other people in your cell with you what Mr. Adams had said. You all discussed it, didn't you?
I don't remember.
So it's possible you did and you just don't remember now?
I don't remember.
Can you answer it louder?
I don't remember.
Okay. So that's a
I remember
memory
what-
you don't have at this point.
Yeah. I don't remember that.
Okay. And this happened in Chester County. You went to O'Brien County. You went to O'Brien County because you had a failure to appear. Is that right?
I don't remember.
Your failure to appear in O'Brien County got dropped, didn't it?
I served, I don't know, 10, 15 days there.
Well, that was before you had your court date and you had your hearing on it, isn't it?
I don't remember about all that.
Okay. And matter of fact, at the time all this happened, you were telling people that Zach Adams was bragging about having a $2 million bond. Do you remember telling people that?
Yeah, I remember him bragging about that. That's when he come out the courtroom.
And do you now remember saying that he was bragging about having a $2 million bond?
I remember it, but I don't remember telling nobody that.
Okay.
I remember what he said, though. I'll never forget all of it.
And do you remember at the original time you said you never mentioned Holly Bobo's name? You quoted Mr. Adams as saying if he didn't shut up, he would put his brother in a hole right beside her.
Yeah, because he told me before that he was a Holly Bobo murder case. That's how I knew, Holly Bobo.
Now, you would agree with me that people in jail talk big, don't they?
They try to. They try to.
They try to. And you don't believe everything people in jail say to you, do you?
Not some stuff.
And you've talked big in jail before yourself, haven't you?
Not really. I mind my own business, stay to myself.
Okay. No further questions.
All right. We'll step down. Let's take a recess. It's right at 2 o'clock. We'll resume at 2:15. Follow the admonitions I've given you from the outset.
What we're talking about, high-speed chase, stealing the truck. Were you ever in the Chester County Jail?
Yes, sir.
And did a conversation or some statements happen around you?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me where you were, why you were there, and what happened?
I was in Chester County Jail. I was there for, was accused of stealing a Ford truck and doing a high-speed chase.
When you say accused, I think you probably did it, didn't you?
And that one, no.
That one, no.
That one, no.
All right, so there's other ones you have now.
Yes, everything else I did, that was one of the first ones that I didn't do.
Okay.
But I did the high-speed chase in it and, you know, fought the officers and everything else that went with it.
You just didn't steal the truck.
I just didn't steal the truck.
All right, tell me what happened. Where were you? What happened?
With the theft or the jail or...
Excuse me?
With the jail or...
With the jail.
Yeah. I'd been in jail about a month. I was going up for arraignment. I was kind of late coming into the court area because my lawyer, Chip Sherrod, had come in to see me, and he pulled me aside. And I went in, and in Chester County, it's a long hallway with a bench on the side. And a guy named Cooper, who was in the pod with me, was sitting at the front of the bench. And I went up and I sat next to him, and he told me he'd already been inside. And Zach was standing in front of us on the wall.
Now, let me interrupt you. You said Zach and you pointed. Is that the defendant here today?
Yes, sir.
The record can so reflect. Did you know Zach at that time?
No, I'd never seen him before in my life.
Never seen him before in your life? Okay, what happened?
He was leaning against the wall, and I asked Cooper what happened in his court hearing. He said that he was done in Chester County and he had to go to another jail. And Zach stepped forward and said, "Hey, my brother's in that jail. Will you give him a message for me?" Cooper said, "Yeah." He said, "Tell him if he doesn't keep his fucking mouth shut, I'm going to plant him next to that bitch."
And keep his mouth shut, I'm going to plant him next to that.
Yeah, and Cooper, you know, looked taken aback and asked him, "What's up with that?" And he's, "Oh, my brother, he's telling on me," and went into. Me and Cooper talked for about 5 minutes about my bail. I had $1 million bail. He commented on the bail situation.
When you say he, who are you talking about?
Zach. He commented on my bail, said that he'd probably have higher bail, and I told him probably so. I said, considering what you're charged with, I said mine was excessive. And about that time, they called me into the courtroom. And I went in there, had my arraignment. I come back outside, and I went and I sat down at the other end of the bench. I wanted to be away from my co-defendant. And he'd moved up to the front, so I moved back to the back of the bench. And Zach was pacing around, and he'd come up, and we talked a little bit about bail situation again, and then he was last. So they called him in, and he was in there for a little while, and he comes back out, and comes back, and he's like, "I got $2 million. He said, "I guess you gotta kill a bitch to get that kind of bail around here."
I got $2 million. Make sure I get it right. I guess you got to kill a bitch to get that
kind of bail around here.
Here.
Yeah. And he said, "But I'm not worried." He said, "They don't have no body, they don't have no gun, they don't have no conviction, because they don't have a body and they don't have a gun."
Got no body, not no gun.
No
So
conviction.
No conviction.
Yes, sir.
Because no body and no gun.
Yes, sir.
Had you ever talked to Zach Adams before that day?
No, sir. Never seen him before in my life.
Have you been promised anything in return for your testimony?
No, sir.
You've received nothing at all?
Nothing at all.
Pass the witness, Judge.
Cross.
Now, Mr. Adams had recently been arrested on the Holly Bobo case, hadn't he?
From what I understood at that time, yeah.
And it had been in the news that they'd been searching his house and his property regarding Holly Bobo, wasn't it?
Well, I was in the jail, and the only information I had was when I would call home. You know, my mom's from Decatur County, and so she would tell me little bits and pieces of things.
Okay.
But I only knew secondhand knowledge. So the Chester County Jail has no newspapers, no TV, no source of news at all. So I knew very little about what was going on the outside.
But your family did, and they were passing some information on to you.
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, though Mr. Adams was not facing a murder charge out of Chester County, he was facing his charge out of Decatur County. Your mother was from Decatur County.
Yes, she is.
Okay. And so you knew that the Holly Bobo murder was out of Decatur County.
Yes, and that he was, from what we understood, he was being held in Chester County.
Okay. And did you know at the time he was in protective custody?
No, I didn't.
Okay. He never came to the pod with you all, did he?
No, they had him in a special pod towards the front of the jail.
Just a special single cell right there by the main office?
Yes.
Okay. And people in jail, they talk big, don't they?
Yes, they do.
I mean, in a way, you want to kind of talk big to protect yourself.
We brag.
Okay. And it would not be uncommon for somebody who's possibly in protective custody to want to brag and protect themselves more than others. Would you agree with me?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions.
Anything else? All right. You can have Mr. President next. All right, you're next.
We can offer the evidence at this time a certificate of authenticity with regard to documents that have been marked for identification previously. The Facebook Adams of Mr. Zach Adams, Exhibit 62, for identification through the witness Rebecca Earp. We have a certificate of authenticity and would introduce one page of those records, page 184, and I'd pass those two things forward to the court.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So you want to file as an exhibit?
Yes, sir.
All right, the $214?
Yes, sir.
Just check. I'm going to publish this by reading it, Judge.
Okay.
This is a certificate of authenticity of domestic records of regularly conducted activity. I'm Nick Jarvis, certified and employed by Facebook Inc., headquartered in Menlo Park, California. I'm a duly authorized custodian of records for Facebook and qualified to certify Facebook's records of regularly conducted activity. I've reviewed the records produced by Facebook in this matter in response to the search warrant received on March 12, 2014. The records include search results, the basic subscriber information, messages, photos, videos, other content, and records for and the belong account number. The records provided are an exact copy of the records that were made and kept by the automated systems of Facebook in the course of regularly conducted activity as a regular practice of Facebook. The records were saved in electronic format after searching Facebook's automated systems in accordance with the legal process. The records were made at or near the time the information was transmitted by the Facebook user. I declare under penalty of perjury that the foregoing certification is true and correct to the best of my knowledge. Beth Jarvis, dated May of 2017. Facebook picture entitled "Who Am I Looking For?" from Zach Adams' Facebook account.
witness.
Next witness is?
State calls Christopher Swift.
You want to kill the machines? Raise your right hand. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
All right, state your first and last name, spell it for the court reporter.
Chris Swift, Chris Swift.
Good afternoon, Chris.
Afternoon.
I want to talk to you first about your past a little bit. You have a couple of felonies over the years, right?
Yes, sir.
What have you pled guilty to over the years?
I've got a forgery. I've got a third-degree rape, attempted spousal rape, and aggravated assault.
In those
Your
cases,
voice is kind of trailing off. Can you speak up, please?
Yes, sir.
if you can speak where I can hear you back here, then it should be okay.
I've got third-degree rape, forgery, attempted spousal rape, and aggravated assault.
All right. And you're currently on the SOR, sex offender registry, and probation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Well, what are you doing now? What's your life like?
Well, now I'm a foreman at Jones Brothers Contracting.
I'm sorry, can you speak up just a little bit? Maybe you can use the microphone. There you go.
Working at for Jones Brothers.
Jones Brothers?
Yeah.
What is that? What do you do there?
With heavy excavation construction work.
Okay. And did you say you were a foreman with them now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now I want to take you back to a couple years ago. This is 2016, right? Were you in jail in 2016?
Yes, sir.
What jail were you in?
Williams County.
And were you serving some time for that last offense that you had?
Yes, sir.
Did you at some point meet Zach Adams?
Yes, sir.
Speak up just a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Do you see Zach Adams during the courtroom?
Yes.
Okay, if you could point him out and describe what he's wearing.
Right there, the orange tie.
All right, for the record, the defendant.
How did you get to know Zach in the jail?
We just got to talking every day and kind of struck up friendship.
How did that work? When you say talking every day, are you guys talking like over lunch, or is it how does it work exactly?
Nah, we was talking on recreation whenever we come out. We were locked down 23 hours a day. You come out, it's solitary confinement. We was out an hour a day, and whenever I'd come out, I'd go down and talk to him. Whenever he'd come out, he'd come over and talk to me.
Would you also? And I remember you telling me that your particular cell was situated in a spot where he might walk by
Yeah,
on a regular basis.
On the top tier, there was a shower at the very end of the wall. My cell was right there in the corner, right beside the shower.
Okay.
So he had to come by my cell every day.
And would sometimes when he walked by your cell on his way to the shower, would he stop by and talk to you a little bit?
Yes, sir.
You now when you were in jail, and maybe you still are, but you were a religious man and you prayed frequently. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Did Mr. Adams notice when you were praying one time?
Yes, sir, he did.
And did that spark a little conversation?
It did.
Tell the jury about that.
He asked me if I thought that if God would forgive him, and I'd asked him, I said, "Forgive you for what?" And he said, "My case." And so, "What do you mean?" And he said, "The Holly killing." And I told him, I said, "Yeah, God will forgive you for everything. It says in the Bible, forgive you your sins if you just ask for forgiveness." And he asked if I'd pray for him, and I said, "Yeah."
So he saw you praying. Were you actually praying when he saw you?
Yes.
And he asked you was this when you were in your cell?
Correct.
And he asked you if God would forgive him.
Correct.
And you asked him why. And he said, for the Holly Bobo killing.
Correct.
What else did he say?
He just wanted to know if I'd pray for him.
Did you pray for him?
I did.
Did he talked to you a little bit more about the Holly Bobo killing and rape, didn't he?
He did.
Was it that same day?
No, sir. It was over a period of time.
Okay. So tell us what he told you the next time. Did he talk to you the next day or the next week or?
It was the next day. It was over, couple day period here. That, he wasn't involved in the killing, is how he worded it. He said, I wasn't involved in the killing. I was involved in the worst part of it.
Okay.
And I didn't press him for anything further. I didn't really want to know any of that, and he'd let me know that, it was some boy that hung himself, and I guess it was his brother that was involved in the killing, is what he said.
Okay. Did he mention the rape?
Yeah, he said that they were in a back room having sex with her. So.
Who was in the back room having sex with her?
His brother and some boy that hung himself.
Okay. And did he say something went wrong?
Yeah, he said something went bad wrong, and he said he was involved in the worst part of it.
He was involved in the worst part of it. But he didn't tell you specifically if the part that he was involved in was the rape, or if the part that he was involved in was the kidnapping, or if the part that he was involved in was the murder.
No, sir.
Or if the part that he was involved in was the disposal of the body.
Correct. And he
He
didn't.
just told you that he was involved in the worst part.
In the worst part of
And
it.
he wanted to be forgiven for that.
Correct. All he said was he wasn't involved in the killing.
Now, what did you do with this information?
I sat and thought about it for a couple of days about what I should do about it, and then my lawyer had come visit me and told my lawyer about it, and he, I guess, contacted the district attorney or TBI or someone.
Okay. And did TBI come talk to you about it?
They did.
How long did they talk to you about it?
It's about 15, 20 minutes.
And did you tell them what you remembered at that point?
I did. To an extent, I was pretty nervous.
Is that kind of the only time you talked to them about it?
Yeah, and then I met with someone else and discussed it with them as well.
Now you indicated also that there was a time when you thought that Zach was going to come have a visit with his lawyer or something like that?
Yeah, his attorney had come visit him, and he come back. He was pretty depressed, and for about a week or two.
Before that, though, I want to go take you a little bit before that.
Okay.
Did he ever tell you a little bit about what he thought about the case?
Yeah.
What did he tell you he thought about the case as far as the strength of the case?
He said as soon as the trial was over, he was going home. They didn't have a body. They didn't have a murder weapon, nor a motive.
No body, no murder weapon, no motive. So he thought that when he went to trial, he'd be going home.
Correct.
Then I guess he had a meeting with his lawyer, and then you can go ahead and tell us about that.
Yeah, he had a meeting with his lawyer, and he come back, and he said it didn't look good. He said it didn't look good for him, and that he didn't go into any more detail than that.
After that meeting with his lawyer, did he talk much more to you?
And not really, not a whole lot about the case. He had another meeting with his attorney, and whenever he come back, he was pretty depressed, and he looked at me and was like, I said, well, it sucks being depressed. And he looked at me and said, yeah, maybe I should just pray about it.
And was that one of those conversations where he was on his way to the shower and he stopped by
Correct.
yourself?
Yes, sir.
How did you take that when he said that to you?
As a threat.
Were you nervous because you were still in the same area that he was at this point?
Yes.
Did they finally move you out of there?
Yes.
Now, at this point, let me ask you this, Chris. When you first went to ZBI, when you first told everybody what happened, why did you tell them what happened?
Seemed like the right thing to do.
You ask him for anything for your testimony here today?
No, sir.
Did you get anything from your testimony here today?
No, sir. I missed a day's worth of work.
And you, in fact, when this all first began to happen, your deal, whatever it was that you got for the crimes that you committed, was already set.
Correct.
And it didn't change any, did it?
No, sir.
So you served whatever time you were supposed to serve, right?
Yes, sir.
And you got out of jail on the probation, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did Zach Adams contact you subsequent to that?
Yes, sir. He'd called me from another inmate's PIN number and was just, asking how I was doing, how it felt being out. And, I said, well, good, I'm real proud of you. And then he said, I probably wouldn't be talking to anybody else. And he said, you take care of yourself, and then hung up.
Okay. I probably wouldn't be talking to anybody else. Now, based on what you knew about Zach Adams, what you learned about him, spending time in prison with him or jail, did you take that as a threat?
Yeah. I sure did.
Did he ever mention to you, and I'm going before that last conversation, the phone call you just mentioned, where he said, I probably wouldn't be telling anybody else if I were you. Did he ever mention to you what kind of sentence he might get?
Yeah, he said he was going to get the death penalty.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Mr. Swift, I'm Jennifer Thompson. So the first time you spoke with the police, it was on October the 17th, 2016. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
And up until shortly before that time, you said Mr. Adams was going around kind of bragging, saying nobody, they don't have a body, and without a body and no motive, they'll never get a conviction.
I never said he was bragging about it, no ma'am.
Okay, so he was just telling you, though, that there was no murder weapon, no body, and they wouldn't get a conviction.
Right.
Okay. And you indicated that it was sometime shortly before you spoke with the police that his attorney came to see him and he got depressed?
Yes.
Okay. And at that time, he said that he would probably be going to death row?
He said it was going to the road, yes.
And you have television there in that jail, don't you?
A little bit.
Okay.
We don't get to pick the channels we watch.
Right.
We don't, yeah.
There's actually another pod that picks the channels you watch, isn't that right?
I wasn't sure on how all that went.
Okay. But you remember meeting with my investigators that came to see you? We had 2 women that came out to talk with you?
No one ever came out and talked with me.
Okay. Did they talk to you on the telephone?
Yes.
Okay. But you remember talking with an investigator from the defense team?
Yes. I'd returned the call. I left a note on my door and said that they would like for me to call them back.
And do you remember telling them that you didn't think that Zach had actually committed the crime?
I do.
And that you didn't think he was capable of it?
I remember that.
And that was accurate, that was honest, what you told them, right?
Right. From what I was told by him, that he didn't have anything to do with the killing, that's what I told the investigators.
Okay. And when people are in jail, they do tend to brag a lot, don't they?
Some do and some don't. Usually the ones that are bragging, they're just trying to show off. But the ones that are quiet and don't really talk about it a lot, they just talk about it a little, those are usually ones that you got to watch out for.
But that's just a generalization on your part, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can I have a minute?
Anything else?
Just a couple of
All right.
Now, when you talked to their investigator, you told them you didn't think he did it?
Correct.
What do you mean by that exactly?
They asked me about the conversation that was had, and between Zach and I, conversations that we had had, and they said, "Well, do you think he done it?" And I said, "Well, according to what he said, no, I don't think he done it. And what little time I knew him, he didn't seem like he'd be capable of doing something like that."
According to what he said, which was, he told me he was involved in the Holly Bobo case. He said he was involved in the worst part of it, which you don't know. You've already testified you didn't know what that was.
Right.
And then he said his brother and the guy that hung himself, you don't know Shane Austin, do you?
No, sir.
Was involved in the rape, and they had sex with her. He said something went wrong, and he and his brother, the guy that hung himself, killed her, right?
Zach didn't say that he and his brother killed her. He just said he had to help his brother. Something went bad wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he knew everything about the case.
Yes, I guess. He didn't tell me everything, but I'm assuming he knows, what went on.
Okay. But it sounded like was he trying to minimize his involvement when he talked to you?
I mean, that's a good possibility, yeah.
Okay. And when he told you not to talk to anybody, you still took that as a threat, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you were concerned enough about him to feel threatened by that conversation after you left the jail, is it right?
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing further.
No, Your Honor.
All right. Step down. You're free to go. Do
Thanks,
not
sir.
discuss your testimony. Call your next.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, on behalf of the state of Tennessee, we rest our case in chief.
Okay. When they say we rest our case in chief, that simply means they finished their proof and their case in chief. As I told you at the outset, they have the burden of proof. The defendant is not required to prove his innocence or to prove anything, but they can present such proof as they wish or desire. We're going to take a 15-minute recess at this point, and then we'll continue.
Rape goes, Your Honor. We've heard testimony from Jason Autry as to the aggravated rape, but we have not heard any type of corroboration. And as far as criminal, evidence is insufficient to sustain a conviction if solely based on the uncorroborated testimony of one.
What about the two other witnesses that said they heard Zach say words to the effect of hitting it,
right.
and then they used the word that is the street name for what hitting it was? You had two separate witnesses that said that.
Right. Well, we say that they were presuming what Zach meant by that, but he didn't specifically refer to rape. He just said hit it, and both those witnesses said that they presumed what he meant was sex with Holly, but that's not exactly what Zach said. So I say that that's not corroboration.
I think it's pretty clear from the context that that's what the reference was, or at least one that the jury could draw. Yeah.
As far as the kidnapping, Your Honor, there's no evidence that she was forced to go anywhere. The description specifically was not that of Zach Adams, that Zach Adams at the time was tall, thin, had dark hair. He has dark hair. The person that was mentioned was approximately 200 pounds and had dark hair, length of the shoulder, and was between 5'7", I can't remember, something up to 6 feet tall. So I say that doesn't match the description of Mr. Adams.
Court's constrained to observe that I'm probably going to have to charge facilitation, which is my least favorite charge in our pattern instructions, but probably as to all offenses, I'll just go ahead. I'll keep an open mind, let the parties. And as far as forcible abduction, I think the finding of the blood there, the description of what the brother saw, certainly supports that.
And as far as the murder, we have Jason Autry's testimony, but there's not corroboration from another source as to corroborate the homicide, Your Honor.
Corroboration, the cell phone guy was pretty direct in placing things at various places to corroborate the testimony of Mr. Autry. So your motion for judgment of acquittal will be overruled as to each count. State wish to add anything else?
It sounds as though the court's already made up their mind, so I will not.
Well, okay. I don't even take a lot of notes, and I've got a lot of information, okay? Let's bring the jury in. All right, call your first witness for the defense, please.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Rita Austin.
Rita?
Rita Austin.
All right, Rita Austin. Would you raise your right hand, please? Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Be seated, state your first, in the witness chair, state your first and last name and spell it for the court report.
Rita Austin, Rita Austin.
And Miss Austin, are you related to Shane Kyle Austin?
Yes, Jimmy Austin and I, Rita Austin, have a son named Shane Kyle Austin.
Okay. And can you tell us, back in April of 2011, where was your son living?
Shane was living at 30 Yellow Springs Road in Holiday, Tennessee.
And where was that? What kind of residence was
It is
that?
a trailer about 2 miles away from our house at 790 Pugh Road.
Can you speak up just a little, because your voice is trailing off?
Okay.
Where do you live?
I live at 790 Pugh Road, and Shane lived at 30 Yellow Springs Road, which is about 2 miles away.
Okay. And his residence, how did he come to live in that trailer? How did you come to own it?
Jimmy and I purchased this trailer to move him out of our house into his own residence.
Okay. And what about the items at the house?
Me and his dad.
Okay. And so are you familiar with the items he had at that house?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So tell me about quilts that Shane would have had at that house. Can you tell the jury about that?
Shane wouldn't have had any quilts at that house. He moved in the last week of March of 2011. In his bedroom at my house at 790 Pugh Road, he slept with an air conditioning running pretty much year-round. So he did not have a quilt. And, you know, all of my quilts are at home, and he got everything from our house. He didn't go out and buy anything. He didn't have any money to buy anything, so to speak.
Okay. And tell the jury about a burn barrel that would have been at that trailer.
Shane didn't have a burn barrel at his trailer. The way that we did his garbage, my son-in-law worked for a cooling tower company, and they brought a brute container that had a lock and top on it, and it was put at the foot of the trailer where that hitch lock is, and it was put right there and had a top on it. His neighbors had dogs, and so that was what we did. And we live in the country, rural country, and we don't have any garbage service. So me and my husband Jimmy would pick up his garbage when we took our garbage out and away.
Okay.
Which way am I supposed to look?
That's fine. Yes, look at the jury.
Okay.
And it's a balance with that microphone being too close, and it kind of gives a little bit of a puff too far away, and it's hard to hear.
Yep. Okay. Okay. If I'm not doing good, tell me.
Okay. And then let me direct your attention to the property, the driveway. Did the driveway have a gate?
No, the driveway did not have a gate. at that time. We did put a gate and a fence up, and it was June of 2011 after we bought Shane a puppy.
Okay, and then it's another background matter. Would you tell the jury about your mother, Juanita Hickerson?
My mother is Juanita Hickerson. She passed away on March 11th of 2011. Shirley King, which is Jason's mother, is my sister. That was our mother, Juanita Hickerson, that passed away March of 2011.
And where was her property located?
Her property was 820 Yellow Springs Road, which was probably about a mile from Shane's trailer on Yellow Springs Road. If you were going to the interstate, it would be hooking around going toward Bible Hill Road.
Okay. Next, I'd like to switch topics and direct you towards Shane's appearance in the spring of 2011. Would you tell the jury what Shane looked like in the spring of 2011?
Shane had a motorcycle wreck in 2009, in April of 2009. He had some really bad scars on his face. He wrecked into a tree, and he wasn't wearing a helmet, and he was airlifted to Vanderbilt, and he had a scar kind of like right below the wreck. Actually tore through this area. He had a lot of stitches into this area out to the corner of his mouth. So because
Can I interrupt you? When you say this area, I know you're pointing, but for the record, will you use words to describe that area?
Okay. It was a thick red raised scar. Thick red raised, not real well fixed, because it was a accident that really mangled that area up on this part of his face. So most of the time, or pretty much, no, all of the time, he wore a goatee to try to help camouflage this. He was very self-conscious about that scar on his face.
And when you were pointing to where the scar was, you're pointing to here. Use a word to describe where here is.
Right up above the corner of his mouth, kind of out toward the cheek area. You know, it kind of went down and out to about right here. Went out toward the cheek and toward the jaw area, just halfway between the cheek and the chin area.
And what about his eye?
Oh, that was even worse. On this same wreck he had in April of 2009, it crushed his orbital socket, and it also crushed this bone right here in the nose area. So his nose was kind of flattened out, and this eye socket, and that also clipped a nerve in his eye. They repaired that the first night when we were at Vanderbilt. They repaired that tear in that tendon. But subsequently, he had 2 more surgeries on this eye, trying to build enough tissue to hold the eye correctly in the socket. But it didn't ever get where it was okay. And what happened is, when you looked at Shane, you'd see a defect. He had beautiful blue eyes, but it was defected. His eyelid hung down enough that you could see the white underneath his eye. You could see that all the time. And anybody that looked at him, that would be one of the first things that you noticed, is his eye wasn't right. I've even had a friend ask me.
You're on objection hearsay.
Okay, just, yeah, it's not important what the friend said.
Okay.
Let me ask you about the goatee. You mentioned a goatee. Did he have a goatee in April of 2011?
Yes, we have some pictures that had that in it, yes.
Okay. Let me ask you about Shane's transportation, his truck. In April, around April the 13th of 2011, what kind of transportation did Shane have?
Shane didn't have any working transportation. He had a truck parked behind his house, and if you could ever believe this story, it's another last week of March of 2011. Shane had a Chevy S10 truck. He was coming home from 641 going toward his house at 30 Yellow Springs Road. He lost control. He spun the truck around and slammed into a telephone pole. That messed the whole frame of the truck up. It drove the passenger side, and at the bed of the truck, it hit between the passenger and the tailgate. Drove that chair on the passenger side all the way in to the console on the passenger side. Because he hit that like that, the top of the telephone pole broke in half and hit the top of the cab and messed the cab up. They got the truck off of the telephone pole, and it was like it was driving sideways down the road. He got it over to his trailer, parked it behind his trailer, and that's where the truck was. People searching for.
Well, let me,
Okay.
just before we get to that,
Okay.
about the truck. How do you know, though, that since it didn't drive well, but it could move, how do you know that he wasn't driving it at that time?
We took the keys away from him. Shane wasn't in a good place, and that truck drove sideways, and it was dangerous for him to get out in that truck that wouldn't drive. So we had a set to, and we took the keys away. And we also had an FBI agent visit us during that time, and I went into the safe in our room and produced that set of keys for him to see.
Okay, and so did Shane have access to your house during this time?
He never had a keys to my house. He didn't have keys to any of our vehicles. He did not even have a key to the door. Like I said, people that are not in good places don't have access to, he never. From the time he was 16 years old, we bought vehicles that didn't require major, they just required insurance on them, and all this was
Okay, Your
insurance.
Honor,
Okay.
I'm going to object as to relevance. This was
Okay.
10 years after.
I think it was volunteered, but
I understand.
He didn't drive any of our vehicles.
Okay.
Ms.
that's
Hoffman,
fine.
listen to the questions, make your response. If you feel you need to explain, you're allowed to do so, but listen to the questions, just respond, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
I wanted to ask you about Yellow Springs Church. Can you please tell the jury about Yellow Springs United Methodist Church? Where is it located?
Yellow Springs Church is on Yellow Springs Road. It's set right in the corner. Pew Road comes up, and Yellow Springs Church is right in the corner of that road.
Okay.
Well, if you come up the hill, you would be at Yellow Springs Church. One road goes one way. It's in the corner of Pew Road and Yellow Springs Road.
Okay. And did anything in particular take place at Yellow Springs Church on Thursday, April the 14th?
Yes, it did. I went to pick up Shane to take him to work at 2:30 in the afternoon on the 14th. And when I started coming up the hill, there were cars everywhere. There were school buses there. And they had set up a command search post for Holly Bobo.
Okay. I'd like to move on then to your nephew, Jason Autry. Can you tell me about Jason's paternal grandmother?
Yes. Jason, his grandmother is Sudie Autry.
Say that again.
Sudie, S-U-D-I-E, Autry.
Okay.
She is a sister to Ruby Bobo.
Okay.
Gary's daddy and Dana Bobo are first cousins. So,
How would that make him related to Holly Bobo then?
third cousins. She'd be a second cousin to Gary and a third cousin to Jason.
Okay, and would Jason have known this information?
Yes, he would.
No,
Yes, he would.
I'm gonna object to speculation unless she's absolutely knows that he knows. I mean, that's.
Okay.
Okay, well, I absolutely know that he knows.
Okay. And then, have you visited Jason Autry since he's been charged in this case?
We began, I don't know for sure if he was charged in this case, but he was in jail in Decatur County, and we went to visit him every week. Some of our family, it not be me every time, but every week we went to see him at the jail. Sometimes we'd even take Isabel Hickerson, his great aunt.
Okay, and then after that, did you continue to see him once he went to Nashville?
He got transferred first to Dyersburg, and Jason told us that he didn't think that he would be there very long. And then he got transferred to River Bend, and then we began to visit him at River Bend Prison. And we did, when we got approved for a visit, we went.
Okay, and then while there, was there anything in particular that you took note of while you would visit Jason?
One time when we visited Jason, he had a copy of a report about some pink underwear. And I was elated. He stuck it up on the window, and I was elated that he had this report because it said none of the...
Objection.
Okay.
Okay, so...
I don't think it's really an issue. We've had other testimonies, so let's kind of get to the
Okay, but that was some evidence in this case?
Yes, it was.
And were there other times that he shared evidence in this case with you?
Only that same time he told us that she had been shot. And he...
I'm going to object to what he told her. It's hearsay. I'm not objecting to what she said or saw or witnessed, like the report.
What Jason said to her is hearsay.
Well, but Your Honor, I'm not trying to offer it for the truth of the matter. I'm trying to offer it to show that Jason had knowledge, that he was in possession of discovery in this case. I'd asked Jason specifically, and he had denied some of that. And so this is some impeachment. One, it's impeachment, and two, it goes to show his knowledge, not whether or not it's true. I'm not offering it for the truth of what was said.
I think that's exactly what he testified to in here, but go ahead and ask her.
Okay, so
he told us that she had been shot through the back of the head, and the bullet come out on the right side, right under her right eye. He said at the scene there was 3 bullet casings, a .308, a .380, and a .410.
Okay.
You know, what discovery he shared with them.
Okay.
We could spend the rest of the afternoon, probably. It just shows he's getting discovery through his attorneys. The only thing that shows. Okay,
Yes.
let's go.
And so the Greenway under the Interstate 40 bridge, have you ever been there?
Yes, we walk our dogs at different places. The river and under this Tennessee River Bridge is very beautiful area.
And how would you describe that area?
It's a national refuge, and you come in a one-lane road into the refuge area, and you drive around a body of water, and then you go over a body of water that's called tie yard. I don't know if you're fishermen's, but that's tie yard. And then you go on following the road, and you go out to the main channel of the river, and that's the river bank where we walked most of the time with our dogs.
Okay, and this tie yard, what's the water like there in the tie yard?
Well, we didn't walk near, you have to cross over this, okay? There's a spillway, and you have to cross over it to go on into the river. But it's grown up, it's got big rip-rappy rocks around it, and it's all grown up except a little place where you can pull in and people fish there. They go in there and fish. It's really good fishing area. And even Shane and Jimmy fish there. It's not easy. So that water is backwater. What backwater? Dark, dank looking water. It's not fresh water.
Okay. And then we've heard some talk about Shane and Shane's suicide. Can you please tell the jury kind of some of the surrounding facts regarding Shane's suicide? Let's start with his drug issues.
In February 23rd, 2015, Shane took his life. He was down in Florida trying to work and get his life straight. He was working on cooling towers. He began using drugs again. He was making $1,500 a week. And when we got his bank account, he didn't have but $200. So he was using a lot of drugs. And my son-in-law was his boss. And he fired him on Tuesday. He'd give him all kinds of chances trying to help him. And on Tuesday, he fired him. And Josh was going to bring him to the airport on Saturday. And Shane was so messed up at the airport that he didn't get on the plane with his plane ticket that we purchased. And so when he called us, before he lost his phone, he called us very messed up, very...
And I don't want you to say what he said to you when he called you,
Okay.
but kind of what happened after that?
Shane went back to the hotel where they had been staying, and he was mad. He was mad at Josh. He kind of kicked in some of the air conditioning stuff. The hotel man was called to do something with him, and Josh begged him to take him to jail. He said, please, just take him to jail. And the man wouldn't do it. Shane had been down there for a month or more working and renting, and he said he would not press charges. So Josh loaded him up and took him to another motel and paid for it and told him to get in there and stay in there. And then we were in the process of going to rescue him, and we got down there and he was dead. He was in his room locked in and he was dead.
Okay. But he had a long struggle with drugs, is that right?
Absolutely. A long struggle with drugs.
And his struggle with drugs, did that begin before or after Holly Bobo disappeared?
No, it didn't begin just when she disappeared. He's had a history since he was 16 years old in high school, on and off. He got clean, and we had 8 good months before he went to work with Josh. And then when he went to work, I said he does really well if he don't have any money, but he went to work with him and he got a hold of money and he started right back using again.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
If I could have just one moment.
Cross.
Jake's material, please.
I don't have any written reports.
I'm Jennifer Nichols. I spoke to you in the hall, but I'm
Right.
not sure if you knew who I was.
Right.
Listening to you talk about Shane, it's fair to say that this drug problem had very much affected yours and Mr. Austin's life.
Absolutely.
And in fact, do you remember after Holly disappeared when Karen and Dana?
I surely do.
Anthony
I surely do.
came to your house to
Yes.
talk about it?
We let him in, just,
And you know, by that time, Shane's name was already out there.
Yes, it was.
As being a suspect in this.
yes, it was.
And you told Karen that you had to buy that trailer and move him into that trailer because of the people and the drugs that he was bringing into your house.
Exactly.
And that's not the way you raised him.
No. He had a silver spoon in his mouth.
So to get that element, those people that you didn't approve of, and those drugs out of your house, you bought that trailer.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and clarify that. I didn't speak about his friends that did drugs. I said we had to get Shane out of our house and get the drugs out of our house.
So you weren't worried about the people he was hanging around with?
Really, he didn't bring those people to my house.
Okay, well, that sort of carries me to my next one. Now,
Okay.
you said he doesn't have a burn barrel. It sounded like he didn't have access to a burn barrel. But you have to agree with me that Shane kept
You
things.
need to back off just a little bit.
Okay, sure.
Shane kept things from you and your husband.
He kept things, but we went over there to get his garbage, just like we did ours. And
So that's a yes with an explanation. Yes, he kept things from you, but yes, you believe you would have seen a burn barrel.
I know I would have seen a burn barrel.
You would have seen that burn barrel if the burn barrel had been in the front yard in front of the trailer.
I would have seen the burn barrel.
Would you have seen the meth in his house?
I saw it at my house, so sure I would have. I mean,
Would you have seen him cooking it?
No, he didn't cook it to my knowledge in my house.
So if he did cook it, that's something he didn't do in front of you.
That is right. He did not cook meth in front of me.
You know that he was hanging out with Zachary Adams, right?
Yes, I do.
You know that he was hanging out with Zachary Adams' brother.
Yes, I do.
In fact, he was particularly close to Dylan Adams.
I think he liked Dylan Adams, yes.
And when all this happened and Shane's name got out there, you and your husband took measures to try and help him, right? As any parent would.
Absolutely. We got concerned about this.
I mean, your son was a suspect in the kidnapping.
Absolutely. Yeah, we sure, he was a suspect, sure.
Your son was a suspect in the kidnapping, the rape, and the murder of Holly Bobo.
Now, when we first was acknowledged, it wasn't rape and murder. It was in her kidnapping. We knew it from the time that his name was associated with the kidnapping. Now, this rape and murder stuff came later, but we was well aware that his name was.
And I'm not trying to trick you. Because as the case progressed, you did know that Shane was a suspect in both the rape and the murder, just like he was in the kidnapping.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I mean. I'm not trying to trick you.
I just want to be as honest as I can be.
Gotcha.
I want this to be done.
And you and your husband got an attorney for him, didn't you?
We didn't get an attorney until 2014.
Okay, my question was, you and your husband got an attorney for him?
Not till 2014.
Didn't ask when.
Well, that's too bad.
Really?
Really?
Okay, so you and your husband got an attorney, didn't you?
Yes, in
There you go.
2014.
And his name is Luke Evans, correct?
That is right.
He's a family member of y'all's, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Luke Evans negotiated with the DA at the time assigned that case.
Yes.
I'm going to object unless she has specific knowledge.
She just said yes, so.
And in fact, there were times when you were present at those meetings, correct?
I was never present with Luke Evans and Shane Austin in any kind of discussions. Never.
Did you become aware that your son provided information to the district attorney's office about, let me finish, about the kidnapping, the rape, and the murder of Holly Bobo?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. May we approach?
Become aware that your son provided information to the district attorney's office regarding the kidnapping, rape, and murder of Holly Bobo.
I know that Shane and his lawyer had a meeting with the district attorney's office. What information he provided, I don't know.
You'd recognize his handwriting, though, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
I'll hand you a document. That's your son's handwriting, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I'm going to ask you to review, but don't read aloud.
Yep.
Shane's writing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Have you ever seen this piece of paper before?
No, I have not.
Did you ever discuss these things with your son?
No, he had told me from day one.
Objection, Your Honor.
Your son.
No, he did not. He didn't ever say that he knew anything about this case to me.
And yet you've just read 5 things in his handwriting that show you otherwise. Doesn't it?
Well, it doesn't show. I mean, you have to know what the questions was on that. You have to know the situation before you know he.
You don't want to answer that question, do you, Ms. Austin?
Well, why don't you clarify where that was at and how he said he knew these things? Is that what you're saying, that he knew these things?
It's his handwriting, isn't it?
Did it say he knew those
Answer
things?
my
Your
question.
Honor, I object. Her question is confusing.
That document is hearsay, so let's move on.
Okay,
His writing, right?
absolutely.
At the time of Shane's death, you very honestly told the jury that he was in a bad place.
Right.
That's not the first time he's been in a bad place, though.
No, it was not.
And you said that it had been off and on since he was 16.
That's right.
Would you agree with me that Holly abduction and rape and murder haunted him?
No,
Let her answer the question.
no, I would not say it did, because he vehemently said he knew nothing about it, and he knew nothing about that. That's why we didn't hire a lawyer till 2014. He says he's innocent of all this, and I believe that.
Right. And so that's what he told you.
That's right.
And yet I just shared with you a document in his handwriting, not going to get into what's in it, but you see something different, don't you?
I see,
Yes or no?
I see,
And
no,
then explain.
Your Honor,
I-
I object to this.
She is entitled to a yes or no answer, and then if she wants to explain.
okay, well, I'm gonna say no then, because I
This
wanna,
doesn't change anything for you?
I wanna say no, because you haven't told me where he made those statements, or where he wrote those statements. You don't have to tell me, you don't have to tell everybody what the statement says. Just tell me, it was this, I confess to this? I mean, did he confess to that? I mean, you have to tell me the contents of what's on that paper. Not the content, so to speak, but the situation involved with those statements.
May I please see the document that District Attorney was,
She has it, Judge.
well, I don't know specifically.
In
It
fact-
was recited in Decatur County one
Yes.
time, if it's what I'm thinking.
It
And
is.
it's hearsay at this point.
And for the record, Your Honor, we actually got it from defense counsel of Shane Austin at that time, so they have it.
Those are facts not in evidence, Your Honor.
Yeah, what?
She's arguing facts not in evidence.
I'm not arguing about what's written.
Let's get on with this.
You remember after Holly disappeared that the searches and whatnot were all up and down that road, right?
Yes, I do.
Most people's property that lived all around there, people were going through it, right?
Yes.
Including Shane's, the property surrounding Shane's trailer.
Now, I know that the searchers were on every road around us, so yes, I would say yes. I know that Shane's property was specifically searched on the 17th of April with a dog team present.
And TBI sort of moved on, but they came back and started asking questions again a few years later about
Yes,
Shane, correct?
yes.
And it was at that time that your husband painted inside, outside of that trailer with lead paint, right?
The outside is not painted with lead paint. We didn't touch that trailer until 2014. We decided that we may have to sell that to get money to defend him when it came back that they were starting to look at him again, and we decided at that point we probably better be getting a lawyer. Up until that point, we thought, we don't need to get a lawyer.
Shane went to the coon hunt the Saturday before Holly's disappearance, didn't he?
Well, I didn't take him there. I did not take him there. And I did not see him there, and I worked that morning in the fish booth.
But you know he admitted to being there at the coon hunt.
Okay.
Objection, she doesn't have.
I don't have proof that he went. I didn't see him there.
So doing the drugs, cooking the meth, going to the coon hunt, there are a lot of things that you didn't know about his life.
Yes, that's correct.
The night before Holly was kidnapped, you took Shane to the Double D to play cards and have some beers with his friends?
Yes, Shane didn't drive anywhere, and we took him there every week to play cards. They played Texas Hold'em on Wednesday night. My husband was working that night, and he ended up picking him up on the way home. And yes, I did.
And you said on the day that she disappeared, you picked him up from his trailer at 2:30 in the afternoon?
No, that was Thursday.
That's the day after?
The day after.
The day that the church, I think you
Yes,
said that
that's the
before.
day after. She disappeared on a Wednesday, and I took him to cards that night at, I would say, 6 o'clock, between 6 and 6:30. I think I made him a hamburger, took that to him, and he ate it, and I took him on down to the bar.
Okay, just one moment.
Sure.
You were asked a number of questions about your sort of relatives and whatnot. Your mother had a barn across the street from the house, right?
Yes.
And that
Yes, she
barn-
did.
And in 2011, that barn was in pretty bad shape, wasn't it?
Yes, it was standing, but it was not in great shape, no.
By 2014, 15, it was gone.
I think actually in 2013,
So by 2014 or 15, it was gone.
yes,
Oh.
yes, sorry.
It was 2014 when things started heating back up. You said you painted the trailer because they were coming back around asking Shane questions and asking everybody questions about Shane.
Right.
That's not what she said.
She can correct her if it's not.
2014 is, actually, we didn't touch that trailer until 2014. That sat there with Shane living in it on and off. And 2014, we decided that I'm probably going to have some money to pay for a lawyer.
Do you remember if that was at the first part of 2014 or the last part?
It was at the first part of 2014 that we started work on the trailer, and I think we didn't get a lawyer for Shane until like April or May of 2014, somewhere, I think April, but I'm not positive of that date.
And so it was sometime after you got that lawyer, that though you weren't present, you know there were meetings between the lawyer, who's actually a
He only had one meeting with the lawyer. Shane flew in from he flew in from Scranton, Pennsylvania. We picked him up at the airport, and we took him to Luke Evans's office, and that was the only time that I know that he met with Luke Evans.
So you picked him up and took him there, but you just didn't go in?
We weren't allowed to. They were TBI edges. Okay.
And there was law enforcement present, correct?
There were TBI agents there, okay?
That's what I mean by law enforcement.
Okay, TBI agents. I'm going to tell you, I'm not real familiar with this stuff.
You're doing
so-
fine. So, do you remember, was that in April or May, or was that after this meeting?
You probably have a copy of that agreement. I do not know the exact date that was made. I want to say March. He left going on a job, and they was calling him on the telephone before. Well, I tell you what, do you know which day that was that they searched that property out at Dick Adams's house that last time?
Was it close in time to that?
Yeah, and the reason it being, it snowed and it froze everything up. And Shane told the TBI agents, hey, I'm leaving out on Monday to go to work.
Hearsay, you can't say what
Okay.
he said.
Okay.
So it was, my question was, it was close in time to the search at Dick Adams?
It was after the search at Dick Adams'.
And you're saying Zach Adams has a house there too, is right at the top, right?
Dick and Zach have a house side by side.
All right, so is it fair to say that from the time you were concerned enough to get your trailer ready to maybe sell, get him a lawyer, that the heat was never off between that time in 2014 and when your son took his life in February of 2015?
I would say that they were I would get, let's see, yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
In other words, they
Repeat that,
remained
repeat that,
from
please.
that time forward until your son took his life,
Okay.
TBI was still interested in not only Shane, but in Zach Adams, fellow looking at me, and Dylan Adams, and Jason Autry.
Well, I can't answer what they were looking at with them, but after Shane did his immunity agreement, they said they were going to arrest him. They didn't come and arrest him. And after that immunity agreement, they left him alone.
I mean, after they said they were going to arrest him?
Yeah, on the television. It was on the television saying that they would give us notice when they come to arrest him. Oh, okay. Okay,
And then
but they didn't come.
the drug usage got worse, correct?
No, actually, for the last part of 2014, he went away to work. And
It
then,
got worse.
when he went back at Christmas of let me get that right. When he come in at Christmas, I suspected he was using drugs. But he left again in January, going back to Tampa, Florida to work. And we hoped when he got back to work that he would be okay. But he started using again in November of 2014.
That's when you started suspecting it.
Right, well, that was when I thought so, yes.
So my question was, and the drug use got worse at the end of 2014 until the time?
And beginning in 2015, yeah, I would say it's escalated, yes.
Yeah, I don't have anything else, thank you.
Okay.
Further direct.
No, Your Honor.
All right, step down. Please don't discuss your testimony with anyone.
Okay.
Call your names.
She can stay in the courtroom, right?
If she wants, yeah. Yes.
We'd like to call Judy Evans.
Raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Be seated, state your first and last name, and spell your name for the court reporter.
Judy Evans, Judyevan's.
All right, proceed.
And Ms. Evans, how are you related to Shane Kyle Austin?
Shane is my nephew. Rita is my sister.
Okay, and are you also related to Jason Autry?
Yes. Shirley King is also my sister, so they're both my nephews.
Okay. Can we talk about your mother's property at 820 Yellow Springs Road?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, who owns that property now?
I do.
Okay, and who owned it in April of 2011?
In April, I'll just start back with the situation. My mother passed away in March of 2011, and there were 4 of us. I've got another sister too, and we were all supposed to share the estate equally. So we got together, and it was decided that they got other things, and I wanted to buy the house and the acreage that was across the road, okay? And so at that time, I was getting a loan to buy their part of it. There was some money that I'd had to pay them to buy them out of that property. So I had been to the bank, and there was a loan in process for me to get the money to give to them to get it over into my name. So
Okay.
that was the deal on that.
Okay, and at that time, did you have any involvement in the property? April 13th, on April 13th?
I did,
2011?
yeah. My horses, I've got 2 horses, and they had been over there, I don't know how many years, but several. I kept them over there. I rode horses at one time, and I would go over there every afternoon because no one was living there anymore. My mother died, so I didn't move. There was a reason I didn't move. I wasn't ready to, right? I had to get the money to get the place, and also I was going on a vacation. I was going to Mount Everest, so I was not going to move until I made that trip. So that was going to happen sometime later on in the summer. So I didn't move, but I did go over there and check on the horses and feed them every day, usually, sometimes after school or before dark at different times. But I
Okay.
would go over there and feed them.
And were you there on April the 13th, 2011?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about the property and the buildings that are on the property?
Okay, well, there's a house, of course, that's on, if you're going, I don't know which side of the road it would be on. If you're coming from the church, the house is on the left side. And on the right side is the pastures, okay? And over there was, at that time, 2 buildings, okay? One building that was by the road was a tractor shed, sort of. It was. My father backed his tractor up underneath it. And then on that same shed, the tractor shed, there was like 2 stalls. That's where the horses would go in and eat. And if I kept the feed in that little room that was right there where they went in. So that was one of the buildings. The other building was a big building that sat, you could see it from the road, and it was in really bad shape. And it was, some people call it a barn, but what it was at one point, probably back in the 70s, my father raised pigs, and so that building was made to hold corn. So it was just a corn crib, okay? I don't know if y'all know what that is, but that's just a big building that's made out of wood, and it would there was 2 holes cut out in the top where you could put a grain elevator in there, and you could scoop the corn onto the grain elevator and get it over into that. So that it didn't have any partitions in it or anything. It was just, if you looked into it, there was 2 doors, and you just see in there. It was just wide open. There was not anything that you couldn't see if you opened that door, or either of the doors. It would show you the same thing. You just look in, and everything that was in there you would be able to see. So.
Okay, what kind of condition was it in?
It was in really bad condition. I don't know when he stopped raising hogs. I don't remember. I went in the military in 1982, and I don't know after that when exactly he stopped. But in 2011, it wasn't in good shape because nothing had ever been put back in it. I think when he quit raising hogs, he didn't do anything else with that. And I don't know that he could have, because it was raised up. The floor was made of wood, and it was raised up just a little bit like that, I guess, where the corn wouldn't be right on the ground or something like that. But anyway, and the tin had come off the top of it. Rain had went into it all those years and rotted out a lot of the spots on the floor. And also there was a tree growing up through there. So it really wasn't in good shape at all, but it was standing there in April of 2011.
Okay, and at some point you heard about Holly Bobo disappearing.
I did.
Okay, and did you ever search this property?
Yes, I did. And that would have been on April That would have been on Friday, and I guess that would be April the 15th. Friday, I work as a school teacher, and the director of schools let students go search if they wanted to. And that day, I also guess that I heard it on the radio or maybe the news or something that the law enforcement was asking people to go look on their property. So I said, yeah, well, I'll do that, sure. And so that afternoon, I went over there, and actually, I called my sister. I said, I'm going over. I called it my mother's place. I'm going over to Mama's, and I want to look over there. And she said, well, I'll go, so I'll just meet you. So we went.
Which sister is this?
That's Rita Austin, yes.
Okay.
Okay. And so we went over there. She met me there, and we went into the house, and nothing was disturbed in there. It was just like it was the last time I opened the door on it. And then we come on the outside, and we're getting ready to go across the road over there where all those buildings were, or those two, not all, sorry. The two buildings are. We were going to cross the street, and I looked up the road toward Hoheimer Road, and there were people coming, and those were the searchers. There were a lot of people searching, I guess just out, I guess there were organized searches. I don't know. I remember there were just a lot of people, okay, and they were over in the field, and some people were in the road, and then others were on the side of the road where my house was, walking, toward where we were. They were looking. And so they come on, and I stood there. You can see everything across the road from the edge of the driveway. I was standing there, and I watched and actually spoke to some of them. I recognized some of the people that were out there. And they looked inside that corn crib / barn, and there were two people that opened both of the doors, and they looked in and shut it back, and they just carried on. And that was that. Yeah, they also looked in there where the horse feed was, and I guess they walked around in front of the tractor to see that too. I don't remember that, but I'm sure they did that. And then they went on down the road toward the Yellow Springs Church, and then she and I went over there, and I threw the horses some feed, and then we walked over there to that corn crib. I opened up the doors and looked in, and I didn't see anything either. It looked exactly like it always did. I mean, it was falling down. It was the same thing. I didn't notice anything disturbed in there. And then we shut it back, and that was it. And then I guess I went home after that.
Now, if somebody had been screaming in the corn crib, would you have been able to hear them from the street?
Yeah, you would, yes.
Okay. And do you know who Jason Autry's paternal grandmother is?
Yes, ma'am, Miss Sudie Autry.
And do you know how she is related to the Bobos?
I do. She's related to Miss, I think her name's Ruby Bobo, I think, but they're sisters.
Okay, and do you know who Ruby Bobo is related to?
Well, it'd be Dana's mother, I guess.
Okay. And did Jason spend much time with his paternal grandmother growing up?
Yes, he did. A lot of time with her, yeah.
Okay, going back to the corn crib, what happened to that corn crib?
Okay, what happened to that? I guess it would be in the last part of 2011, or I'm sorry, in the last part of 2012 and early 2013, my husband tore it down, okay? He looked at it. We didn't have a barn at that time, and he was going to build something, so there was nothing that could be done to that. It was in such bad shape that he just decided that he would take it down and keep what was useful, the stuff that could be reused, he would keep it. So he separated out the tin and some wood and stuff that was good and usable, and the rest of it, he just knocked it down with a backhoe and then dug a hole in the ground and pushed that stuff in it, set it on fire, and then when the fire went out, he covered it up. And then with that material, he built another barn, which is out there now that you can see from the road also. So
okay,
that's what happened to that.
No further questions.
Thank you.
Probably never thought that we talked so much about this old corn.
Hey, I know, right?
He was in bad shape and falling down.
Yeah.
And you can actually get to the corn crib through the woods behind it, correct?
In a car, or how are you talking about?
Yes,
getting-
ma'am.
In a car?
It's possible to get a car through those woods back way into the corn crib.
Okay, I'm confused.
It's possible to get a car back through the woods to the back of the corn crib.
Well, if you came off of the road, you would be driving just through, there was a road there, sort of, that had grown up with grass, and you would drive to that. And I guess you could pull back. Are you asking me, can you pull behind it?
Absolutely.
Okay, I didn't understand. There is woods behind it. That's why I was getting confused. I don't know if you could drive from the woods. There's a set of woods that's behind that. I didn't understand the question, but yes, I suppose you could
You
drive.
Get back there to the,
Right.
to the corn crib going through the back. You said you thought you'd be able to hear somebody scream if they were in the corn crib screaming from the street.
Right.
Would you agree that depends on a lot of different things, doesn't it?
Well, like what, I
Like
guess.
if there's other noises out there, like a loud lawnmower.
Okay, right.
Agree?
Yeah, sure.
Like if she was drugged, restrained, and unable to scream as she was being raped in that old corn crib. Right?
You're saying if she was? If, I suppose so.
Because
Right.
standing there at the street from your mom's house or standing there, you think you'd be able to hear, but you can't see into that corn crib at all, can you?
No, not from the road, no.
Doors shut. It's a private place, right?
It would be,
On
right.
the edge of the woods that you can get to in the back
No, you can't get to it from the back.
from the side.
You would have to park behind it, I guess. I don't know.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay, because there is woods behind it. You would not be able to drive your vehicle out from the woods to get to that. You would have to come in from the road is what I think. I think that's what you asked, or did you ask, can you come through the woods?
Back of that corn crib with the car.
Yes. Okay.
You'd be far off the road at that point.
Well, would be basically the same distance, I guess. You would just be behind it. Yeah.
Behind it hidden.
Right.
And this road we're talking about is a road that you knew the searchers searched, right?
Yes, I did.
Did you know her stuff was found there?
Which road are you talking about?
By your mother's.
The Yellow Springs Road?
Uh-huh.
I had heard that, but I never did know if that was true or not. I've
Yes,
heard
it
a
is
lot of
true.
things. Okay.
Did you know her stuff was found within 75 yards of Shane Austin's house?
No, I didn't.
Nothing else.
When you went over to the property on the 15th of April, did you notice any tire tracks behind the corn crib?
No.
Okay. No further questions.
Done. All right, step down. Don't discuss your testimony with anyone. If you want to return to the courtroom, you may do so. It's up to you,
All
okay?
right, thank you.
Call your next.
That's our last witness, Your Honor.
All right, we'll break a little early. We
Today.
started a little early. Do
For
what?
today. Just for today.
Okay. I understood, okay? Once again, follow the admonitions I gave you. Put this matter out of your mind. Don't form or express any opinion. No conversation with anyone, not even among yourselves. Don't allow anyone to discuss the case with you or in your presence. Continue to avoid all news reports, and hope you have a good evening as you can. We'll start again at 8:30 in the morning, okay? That work all right for everybody? It's not quite as hot right now either, so, all right, thank you.